Hey everybody, welcome to the July edition of our Automationeers Assemble. It's been a while since I've said that, gathering. To improve audio quality, please remain muted unless you intend to speak. And thank you for being on time. Please note this gathering is being recorded and live streamed, and the video will be made available to watch later. I'm Dave Hunt. I'm an engineering manager for the Firefox performance testing team. And I started these gatherings as a way to keep up with the latest projects and practices. The current format is a more or less monthly gathering with a guest to talk about a project that they are working on or a passion of theirs. Please join the Automationeers channel on Matrix. This may be used for sharing resources and can also be used for discussion and questions. So I try to schedule these every month. The times and dates vary depending on our guest. If you're interested in being a guest for a future edition, please let me know. Or if there's a guest you'd like me to reach out to or a topic that you're interested in, please do get in touch. So just a reminder, please remain muted unless you intend to speak, and note once more that this event is being recorded and live streamed. So today our guest is Isabel Ruiz. Isabel is a senior test engineer for mobile, and she's based in Madrid. I've had the good fortune of working with Isabel on the cross-device automation about 2 years ago. So I'm really keen to see how it's progressed since then. Isabel is comfortable with you interrupting to ask questions if you have any. Otherwise, we should have some time at the end for questions as well. So with that, I will pass over to Isabel, who's going to talk to us about cross-device testing.
Hello, as they said, my name is Isabel. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm really happy to be here and being able to talk about this. I've been in Mozilla for about 5 years and part of the mobile test engineer for the last 2 years or so. So today I'm going to talk about cross-device testing, why it's important to have functional end-to-end tests running across different devices. Currently, my team is mainly focused on Firefox tests and testing, automated tests and testing. We have automated UI tests for Firefox for iOS and for Firefox on Android, Phoenix currently. And well, there is a whole team for testing, doing similar tests on desktop. But are there tests that check both platforms at the same time, for example, iOS or desktop or Android and desktop? So this looks like a good scenario to test, like you sign with an account in one place, verify that that works in the other platform. So good news is like we have a framework for checking those scenarios and being able to have tests to verify that. I will go through that and give more details about that later in the presentation. But first, let me summarize what we do in our team. As a mobile test engineer, one of our tasks is to create automated UI tests for the application we work on. We have to work closely with everyone in the team, developers, to understand the features they are developing so that we can create accurate tests, UX to check the details of the app and implement the test correctly, and also the checks that we want to verify within the test, PMs and EPMs in order to know the timing when the features are going to land, and kind of prioritize our work in terms of the critical features and things like that. We also work with the automated test infrastructures, frameworks, continuous integration systems, because we have to be sure that our tests work there. That's critical because we need to add our tests to the development process so that they run on automation while developers are working on developing their features and within the whole development process, so that tests can detect issues, bugs, regressions, and so on. This presentation is focused on Firefox, but we work or have worked in the past also on other mobile applications. Let me give you some numbers. For example, on iOS, we have around 300 UI tests running on automation on Bodybuild and Bitrise. And on Android, we have around 120 running on Firebase and having Task Cluster as the job handler. But even though the coverage we have for UI automated tests is good, this is not enough. Like our tests are running isolated per platform. Android test, iOS test, and desktop test. There are key features for us that are not being tested from an end-to-end point of view between devices, like Firefox account or sync. So some time ago, there were some conversations at managers level to try to improve this situation. So they set a collaboration between teams, and Dave and myself, we started to work on this to try to implement an end-to-end test environment across multiple devices. So we started with a problem to solve and the scenario to test, like starting small and simple, having a consist scenarios to have in mind to start with the trying to implement the environment. So we came with these easy scenarios, like using the same Firefox account. If you start on desktop and then verify on mobile, the data is there. And the other way around, if you start on mobile, you check on desktop, that data is there. By data, I mean history, bookmarks, logins, and open tabs. We started using desktop at one device and iOS as the secondary device. Once we have the scenario, we went into detail to define the steps that we wanted to check in the test. So for example, for the first one, desktop to mobile, we had to log in on desktop, then create some data to sync, then start Firefox on the mobile side, in this case on iOS, log in using the same account, and then go into the corresponding menu in the app to verify that the data is there. And same for the other cases starting on mobile. Having the steps, it was time to list the tools needed in order to achieve that. So we needed Firefox account to log in, Firefox nightly as one device, TPS, testing and profiling tool for sync, that is used for login and injecting and verifying data on Firefox nightly, sync to perform the sync process in each device, Firefox mobile, we started with Firefox iOS, but then we also have Android, Jenkins as the CI system and also the place where tests run, and one Python framework in order to run all the steps needed and kind of to put everything together. And then we had already the steps needed, the tools, and we got to this testing environment that is the one that we are using now. We have Jenkins, it's in a physical Mac in Mountain View office. You have there the address, VPN is needed in order to reach it. And we have a Jenkins file to configure the job that manages this test on each repo, on Firefox iOS and also on Phoenix. And these tests are going to run every time there is a push in master. In case there isn't a push, we have a daily job to be sure that these tests run at least once a day. Also, this Jenkins file installs the repo and configures everything before launching the test. Once the test finished, there is a Slack notification sent to this Firefox iOS alert that looks like this one you can see with a URL to an HTML report with the test results and also the logs and all the information that you may want to check. That's as a high level, and going into more details, we have the Python framework, which is in charge of managing everything and runs each of the tasks. We need to create and verify a Firefox account, then launch Nightly Desktop. Before that, we have to download it from Mozilla Central. Then Nightly is launched. We perform a login and data injected via TPS. When Nightly is closed, then the test on mobile part starts. The simulator, the iOS simulator or the Android emulator starts. once the test is finished, it is closed. Through the whole process, there are logs being recorded, and in the end, a report is generated. The same report as we can see with the logging that I shared before. Logs are very well structured, so it's very easy to debug because there are different parts for each part of the process that is running. So that's very handy when there is an issue you have to debug. When everything is finished, the Firefox account is deleted. It's also important to note that the testing environment uses a state server, and in order to have that working in the mobile app, we had to modify a few things on iOS and also on Android. And I would like to give a summary of the tests that we have currently. On iOS, we have using already Python 3, and we have 8 tests enabled and 1 disabled, those that you can see here. And on Android, we only have 2 tests enabled at the moment. It's a work in progress since we would like to have more and more. We only have those that you can see. And well, I know I've shared a lot of information already, so I thought it was a good idea to have a demo showing how the tests work similarly as they work on Jenkins. So let me go ahead and play the video. Here, the test starts with the pipm run pytest command automatically, and then you see the logs showing each process. Mozilla has been downloaded, and then the account verified, reloading, and here you can see the bookmark created. Now we are going to launch the iOS simulator with this xcode build command. It takes a little bit to start. And then we go to login using the same account that you can see that is created here and verified in the logs. Once we confirm the login, we have to be sure that the sync process finishes so that we can see the items that were stored on desktop. So now we will go to the corresponding menu on the mobile side, and you can see that the example is there. The test status is reported here as passed, and the logs appear there. I hope this video was useful to understand all the pieces that are running together. And well, after having this test running for a long time now, I wanted to share what we have learned so far. And these tests have found real issues. A good example is when on iOS they migrated to use the Rust component like bookmarks, login, and FXA. So it was important to have this test running when those big changes were done within the app. And yeah, and through the time, there has been other issues also detected on the tools that we use, like TPS, and so that otherwise would have taken a lot of time to detect them because they don't have this running continuously. But not everything is great. It's been really challenging to have this working because as you've seen in the video, in the test, we have to wait for the login to finish and also the sync process. So we have to adapt our test to those timing. And also because we depend on too many tools and so projects and features. It's difficult sometimes when something is broken and it's not working to get to the bottom of the issue, because if something is broken on iOS, I'm on top of all the features and everything there, I can find the code. But if something is broken in TPS or FXA or sync, I have to dig into the code and then try to find what has been failing. Sometimes it takes long, but in the end, I mean, as the last bullet, is all a matter of team collaboration. Like these tests have been possible due to team collaboration. Whenever there is a failure, I have to contact different teams. And in the end, we fix everything. Having the test working on Android has been challenging too, to have the state server working. So I've had help from developers. So yeah, I think it's great. And well, this is my last slide. As you may thought, while watching this presentation, there is a lot of room for improvement, and I have a few ideas in mind. I would like to add more tests to cover more scenarios and also more complex scenarios. I would like also to promote these tests so other teams and people know about them, because I've been contacted and people are really interested and they really wanted to do something similar in their teams, so they were happy they didn't have to reinvent the wheel again. But since although in theory it's very easy to install the environment and start using this locally to start playing with and thinking environment to develop new tests, I found that people are struggling with having Python working with the environment and having Android or Xcode working as it is working with the test. So I've been thinking on possible solutions to that, and maybe using Docker could be a way to facilitate things so that we can share an installer and other teams can start working with these tests and taking advantage of the great environment that we have. And yeah, I left a last slide with references in case anyone wants to go and look into detail to the code. Yeah, that was it. I thank you very much for letting me show the work with this test. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Isabel. Could you share the link to your slides in the Automationeers channel in Riot?
Sure.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll first open up to anybody else that's in this call. If you have any questions for Isabel, please go ahead.
I had one question, Isabel. You mentioned that these tests are challenging and they have a lot of, because of the network dependency, they create some instability. How did you work together with the developers to show them the value of these tests? Because a lot of times, I think on teams, they prefer unit tests, which are a lot more reliable than tests like this that are flaky and require a lot of intervention.
Well, the thing is that we are running this test on CI, but the result doesn't impact the development process. So because of that, in case we have some flagginess with the network connection and so, but even though, I mean, I don't think we can do a lot with that since it requires like logging and syncing, so you are not sure about that always. So what I try to do is to be sure while running the test that we wait enough, since in this case, timing is not critical for developers, since they are not waiting for this test to finish before continuing with the development process. So I think, yeah, that's a con, but the pros that this test could give, having them running like in the background and just looking at the results every day is better than not having anything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I had a question. Last time I was involved in this project, it was only iOS. And so Android has been introduced more recently. I'm curious, what were the challenges in introducing Android? Was there anything particularly unique about that platform?
Well, since the full environment was already set up, it wasn't very, very difficult. What I remember being a little bit complicated was dealing with the emulator. You know that on iOS we remove it and put it again from a clean state. So I tried to do the same on Android, but I find that the Android emulator takes even longer. Also, one of the important and most difficult parts have been having the state server working, because since Phoenix was being developed at the same time, more or less, and there have been many changes behind the scenes on that feature. So I had to contact several times the developers, like, it looks like the state is not working again. So we had to modify that a little bit, but it was more or less the same as for iOS. But yeah, that was one of the requirements when some people heard about this test, like, we have this on iOS, and first question was, and when on Android? And it was like, come on, let's enjoy this a little bit on iOS. So yeah, at least we have a few tests running on Android, and yeah, my idea will be to enable more tests there too.
That's great. I'm also curious about the what is the ratio, would you say? How often are we seeing false positives? Some of the tests, you mentioned test stability being one of the challenges. And how often do we get valid regressions out of these? Do you feel like it is a good balance between those at this point?
Well, when we had only iOS and it was working pretty stable for a long time, when we changed to use those components, we found, like, in short time several issues. So I would say it was a good balance then. Then, for many reasons, we have had too many issues in all sides, like on iOS, then on TPS. Remember, I need to ask you to fix something also on Mozilla to allow TPS to work with it. Then this stage problem on Android. So I would say that for some time, like long time, we haven't don't have them enabled. Also because I'm the only one working on those, and it's not like my only task. So, and investigating the failures, as I said, it requires a lot of time, because whenever I want to contact anyone to tell them, like, there is an issue here, before I've done some investigation. So, and I'm not an expert on any of those tools or projects, because I'm like on the very top of iOS. Even on Android, I don't have deep knowledge. So I would say the ratio of fails positive and real issues is not very high now, but again, we are the only team using them, not having even one resource assigned to them. So I think the more tests we will have, the testing environment more stable, we'll be able to detect more things. But yeah, even though that said, if I shared a few issues with TPS, I've also seen some instabilities using a state server that has been fixed, like almost automatically, but something like that we have realized that in a very early stage, which I think is important.
Less of a question, more of maybe a suggestion, there is something that was developed by Tarek towards the end of last year, and it's still being made more resilient, and that is conditioned profiles. The idea here is that we would have a profile that's already in a certain state. We use it for performance testing just to make sure that the browser is in a settled state. So a lot of the very first run processes are settled. But the idea is that it could be used, it could be a heavy profile, it could be a profile with lots of bookmarks or perhaps a lot of history. That might be something that could help with some of your plans for the future. Starting up Firefox with one of these conditioned profiles with many bookmarks, some history, syncing with Firefox Sync, and then launching iOS. Perhaps even potentially skipping the need to use TPS to inject some of that data. So I can point you in the direction for where the state of those condition profiles, but I think it could even be interesting to see if we can do that the other way, because we have condition profiles for Android as well.
Yeah, cool. That sounds really great. Yeah, please send the information to me or where I can start looking at and see if that would be an option.
Yeah.
Could you post that in the Riot channel, Dave? That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, I will do. I have a question that's come in from Riot. You mentioned that the tests have many different integration points and debugging issues can be difficult. Do you have any recommendations for capturing the state of the system under test? I'm thinking of version numbers of deployed services or application builds.
Well, it's true that when we check the logs, we can see where is the failure, if it is in sync, or if it is in TPS, or if it is in the Xcode build or Gradle build. But if it happens on TPS or sync, or so, we don't have at the moment any information about the build or what has happened. When we download Mozilla nightly from Mozilla Central, we do see the build, so we can at least check that build if something is broken in there and go back. I remember using mod regression to try to find where something was broken there, but for the other parts, we don't have like the build information, and I don't know how we could get that, to be honest.
Okay, thank you, Raphael, for the question. Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Isabel? Okay, I will follow up with the condition profiles as mentioned. In that case, thank you very much, Isabel, for joining us and showing your project. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Take care, and hopefully there'll be another event scheduled soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.